So my first question is, which homeschool curriculum and textbooks did you guys use?
For the majority of my experience, I had Becca books for history, for literature, for um, biology and certain general science. I used a lot of those books, and the ones that I had were printed in the early 80s, and I was born in the early 90s. So these were books that were handed down from sibling to sibling. So they were wildly out of date always. And they were definitely prejudiced. I would say that on the literature and history stance, they were definitely prejudiced from, it was a very Western central um, uh, colonist viewpoint that was always there. There was a lot of anti-Catholicism, which, like, do I love the Catholic Church? Not really, but it struck me as odd even as a kid. Um,
True.
yeah, they had a lot of, and a lot of homeschool curricula, particularly with science, will try to say like, "Oh, we're being even-handed. We'll tell you what they would teach you in school, and we'll tell you why it's wrong." Which the why it's wrong is usually misinterpretations of the Bible. Things don't date correctly or whatever. And again, like I had someone make that argument to me recently, actually, and I had to ask him, like, all right, what's your example? And he's like, oh, it's from the 80s. And I was like, okay, science has advanced since then.
Yeah.
We have more accurate ways to determine this information now. That's how science works.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun to and I still wrestle with that as an adult coming out of homeschooling, um, all the science that I didn't really learn, as far as prehistoric, the things that we've found archaeologically that, I would have been taught is not as old as they say it is, or, just things like that. And I'm like, how much am I missing here? Like how much of the
Take a gap.
present picture am I missing out of this puzzle? And that one makes me really uneasy, especially.
It's terrifying. It really is. I'm just going to reiterate everything that Ren said. That's absolutely right. Everything was biased. Christian homeschooling has no concept of science except for a crazed young earth creationism that probably goes head and toe with, I don't know, Scientology concepts, perhaps, if I may go out on a limb. Very anti Catholic, anti everything except Protestants that are eerily like Baptists or crazed Presbyterians. And everything is biased, everything is white Western centric, and there's no concept of actual history, civic matters, or science is deplorable. I mean, I challenge any Christian homeschool student that would actually have a grasp of science, and they do not. None of us were taught that, and as a result, we have a very big dearth in our knowledge about actual science. So here we are scrabbling up Google articles to try to hobble together some basic form of knowledge that most people would have.
Absolutely, right. And you, Tete, also did you did Christian Liberty Academy, and I think they had a lot of Abeka books, right?
They had quite a bit of Abeka books. They seem to hobcobble it from a number of Christian resources, and
Mm,
I don't put it in quotation marks. They were definitely Christian
resources.
resources. I had Abeka, Saxon, their own Christian Liberty Press, which was a very crappy press. Yeah, I think they would even their stuff was worse than chapbooks, like the worst chapbooks you could imagine. Somebody printed it on their cheap copy and just stapled it together and said, "Here you go. Here's a textbook." Um, I want to say that I guess the Abeka had the best printing qualities and quotation marks. It looks like something out of a cheap, crappy '90s movie or
It
'80s
looks like a
movie.
prop textbook. Becca books too.
They look like prop textbooks. You feel like you're in Saved by the Bell, and here's the character Zach throwing textbooks, and it happens to be an Abeka book, like exploring the wonder of world of God's world or some crap like that. And it shows like a picture of a ladybug and a magnifying glass, and it's going to be kiddie-ish, and they might try to break down some scientific concepts, but they're always going to hammer home God created the world in 7 days, and Adam and Eve are suspiciously white.
I think one of the things that has struck me as interesting now that I'm older is how many books my mom had me use that were printed by Amish publishing houses.
That's insane. Like,
yeah,
not even
I think one of them
had
was
that.
called Rod and Staff Publishing House, and
That's
I had
wild, man.
and I learned a lot of my grammar and language, how to dissect sentences and stuff like that. All the rules, the grammar rules, I did with that. And there was also a home ec course that I had to do that was from an Amish publisher. And they talked
my
about how,
God.
a godly woman
Wife.
doesn't wear, right, a godly wife doesn't
course.
wear loud fabrics or have posters on her wall. She decorates, modestly, and is able to do all these and that and the other. And
Cook a meal and have 20
extravagance is
children.
sin. And it's like, okay, you think extravagance is sin, but you believe in a God that was creative enough to give us sunsets, peacocks, a sense of taste and smell. Like, we didn't need those things. Those are luxuries as far as existence is concerned.
If Christians actually believed in the concept of God and applied it, God is just basically Gucci and Louis Vuitton put together. If we want to apply that,
Yeah.
So we all need, if we wanted to really follow God's example, we should all dress like Elton John during his,
Right?
78 tour. Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, Christian modesty is so hypocritical and fake.
Really
Because you look
is.
at
It's
like,
so fake.
people like Joel Osteen and, all those other big name preachers, they're not modest.
No,
No.
that's I in my introduction I called him a shit-eating grinning jester, and that's what he is. He's a mega millionaire flying around in his dozens of private jets and whatnot.